My name is Edie Schulze, and I'm Vice President for Student Life. And once a year, Student Life hosts a focus week on a particular topic for the purpose of helping you, our students, take a deep dive into something that really matters. This year, the theme is Out of the Shadows, Sexual Exploitation and Redemption. These are not issues that are taking place outside of Westmont, although they certainly are, but these are our issues as well. So, as a result of this week, we hope that you'll be able to understand the extensive harm of sexual exploitation in our world. We hope you'll be able to identify strategies and practices to heal from our own sexual abuse, if that's your story, and to help others in the process of healing from theirs. We hope you'll recognize the prevalence of sexual exploitation in Santa Barbara and be familiar with local organizations that are working to put an end to it. On the card you received this morning when you came into chapel, there are several events offered this week to help achieve these goals. I just want to draw your attention to a few of them. Specifically, I want to let you know that every day in chapel this week we're going to be addressing sexual exploitation and healing. Because of this, we realize that this could be a difficult week for some of you. So on Monday and Friday afternoons, there will be an opportunity for you to follow up individually with either a counselor from the counseling center or with an RS faculty member in Founders if this topic hits home and is particularly heavy. On Wednesday, there'll be a similar experience, but that one will be in the form of group support. If you are a student leader or a friend of someone who suffers from sexual exploitation, you will benefit from attending the Friends and Leaders session this afternoon with our chapel speaker. The Counseling Center is also offering extended open hours every day, so I encourage you to go online or email Claire at the Counseling Center if you want to set up an appointment. On Friday, Shannon Ballroom will speak on lamentation and prayer for the sexually exploited. And please note the other events on the Out of the Shadows card. It is indeed a privilege for me to introduce our chapel speaker, Nicole Braddock Bromley. She is the founder and director of One Voice. She is the author of 3 books entitled Hush, Breathe, and Soar. She's an international activist on the issues of childhood sexual abuse, sexual assault, and human trafficking. In 2010, she was the first person in history to hold a public forum on sexual abuse and trafficking in East Africa, speaking alongside the First Lady of Uganda and Kenyan Supreme Court justices. In 2012, she went undercover into the brothels of Cambodia with a film crew to expose child sex trafficking, and in 2014 founded a nonprofit called One Voice for Freedom that stops child sex slavery around the world. For 15 years, Nicole has traveled extensively as a voice of awareness and prevention to some of the most at-risk populations around the world, as well as to some of the most prestigious colleges and universities. Her voice has been heard on numerous TV and radio programs, and her books are changing lives. For me, though, I am very proud to call Nicole my friend. We've known each other for over a decade, and she is a woman of prayer, a servant of the Lord who is using her own story to help others come out of the silence and receive healing from one of the most invasive personal experiences anyone could ever have. Nicole is courageous and compassionate, always kind and gracious. Nicole, thank you so much for coming to Westmont. We are so happy you are here. Please join me in welcoming Nicole Bromley.
Thank you, my friends. Bless you. Thank you. Wow, what a nice intro. Thanks, Edie. You're such a gem. Well, I'm not sure, where you all are from, whether you come from a big city, a small town. If you're anything like me, you come from a really, really small town. The place I'm from in Ohio. No one? What? All right, we'll see you later. The place I'm from in Ohio, we had one street light, we had one little store, and we had more cows than we had people. Now that's why no one from California at Westmont College is from Ohio. That's why you don't live in Ohio. Okay, good. Good for you. Love it. Well, I don't know, your family's background, whether you come from a big family, a small family, a single-parent home, a two-parent home. Maybe you never knew your parents at all. I don't know your values, your dreams, or your fears. We could be the 2 most different people in the world. But the issues that I'm presenting this week span all borders, undermine all relationships and identities, and speak in the universal language of human emotion. And as I share some stories with you this morning, later today, and also on Wednesday in chapel, I think you'll discover that we aren't so different after all. I want to begin by having you imagine with me a 12-year-old girl with long brown hair, hazel eyes, and a big heart encircling the name Zach Morris on her left hand. Y'all are from California. There's no Saved by the Bell fans. I mean, y'all can't relate, or you're sleeping. Turn the lights up, just kidding. Okay. This little girl, okay, she would every day get off the bus, run up her gravel driveway to her house, throw her lunchbox on the table, and go to the freezer to get a big bowl of ice cream. And she carried that bowl to her hot pink bean bag, placed on the red carpet in her bedroom. Her walls were painted pink, and they were covered in posters of ballerinas, basketball players, and the new kids on the block. If no one says anything now, we're done. Because they're making a comeback. I might be older than you, but they're coming back. Okay. The real story. So at home, this girl, she grew up in what seemed to be like the poster child of a small community. Straight A student, captain of 3 sports, homecoming queen, student council president. She lived the perfect life. And at home, things were just as perfect. She lived with her mom and her stepdad. Her stepdad was self-employed. They spent a lot of time doing father-daughter activities. Her mom worked from home, and they were super duper close. She also had a stepsister who was exactly 5 months and 5 days younger than her. They were best friends. A perfect girl, a perfect family, a perfect life. Now I want you to imagine with me that same little girl wishing she were someone else. Imagine her planning how to run away from home. Imagine her planning her own funeral. This same girl, living in the perfect neighborhood, not afraid of strangers, not afraid of spiders. She came home every single day with the biggest smile on her face, but she was the same girl who was afraid inside. She had a secret. She wasn't sure why she had to keep it. Well, I do know that for me, obviously, I was the one with the secret. I was miserable. I was afraid. I was confused. I was full of shame. But I put on this happy mask for everyone around me to see. But I was holding the secret inside, and I wasn't sure why I really had to keep it. But no one talked about the secret, Now, I do know that I will never forget the summer of 1994. I was 14 years old. I was looking forward to my freshman year of high school, and I already told you that we lived out in the country and we had all these cows. Now, I'm gonna tell you the story, and you're gonna think I'm a huge hillbilly, which is fine. I watched a few of y'all walked in here, okay? So we're okay. So when I was like maybe 8 or 9 or 10 or something like that, my stepdad bought this huge tractor because we didn't have cows to eat all of our grass, right? So we had to actually mow, and we had acres and acres of land, and so it was my job. I literally was taught how to drive this huge tractor with this separate mower blade attachment when I was 9 or 10 years old. And I would go out on the weekends. It was my job of cutting our grass. And so I remember one day it was really nice outside, so I put on my bathing suit. I was going to get a tan while I did my weekend mowing job. And I was out there maybe 15 minutes or so, and I saw my stepfather coming toward me with a glass of lemonade. So I stopped my tractor, and I waited for him to reach me. And now the next thing that I'm going to tell you is weird. He wasn't looking me in the eyes. He was looking me over. And a woman knows when she's being objectified. That's exactly how I felt at 12 years old by my stepdad. So I gave him the glass back of lemonade right away, and I took off, and I was upset, and I started crying. And I remember a few minutes later, I just felt so uncomfortable. And a few minutes later, he came back out, offered me another drink, and made a dirty comment that was totally off the wall and disgusting. And I started driving where there were trees. I wanted to get away from him. I looked up. I saw him staring at me with binoculars on our front deck. I started crying. I didn't want him to see that I was upset, but I was. And I remember I was so angry. I wanted to end my life right then and there. I didn't want to deal with this harassment anymore. This has been going on for so long. And so I decided I was going to drive all the way to the end of this field where there was this huge tree and this drop-off. And so I floored it, and I was going as fast as the tractor could go, and I was just going straight for that tree. I was certain that this was how I was going to end my life. I was so ready to be done with this harassment that I'd been dealing with in my own home and keeping this secret and not telling anyone and feeling just so tormented by it. And the last second I had was of my mom and how much it would hurt her, and so I swerved. And obviously my life did not end that day, but neither did this torment. It was supposed to be the happiest summer of my life. We were going on this dream vacation to the Bahamas. I remember getting on the airplane to go down there and just thinking about, along with my stepsister and my mom, how many great memories that we were going to make as a family, only to come back with some of the worst memories of my entire life. After we got back from that vacation, I remember, just thinking about all the terrible moments of just, being in the pool with my stepdad and the touching, and then being in the ocean and coming back to the beach where my mom was laying, and she kept asking me what was wrong, but I said I would tell her later. Just everything, always feeling like I had to hold this all inside. We got back from that vacation. My mom and I were in the car. We were going to pick up my stepsister to bring home with us for the weekend. Our conversation started off as it normally did about each other's day. All of a sudden it was silent. The traffic light turned red and the car stopped. And I remember sitting there waiting for the light to turn green and just wanting so bad to tell my mom about all the things that had been going on, especially in that vacation that I just got back from. All of a sudden she told me about her desire to go back to college. She said that she had talked with my stepdad about this, and he was really upset with her about this idea of her going back to college and starting a new career. And she said that he became very violent with her. She said that my stepdad had been acting very bizarre lately. She turned to me in the car in that moment. She said, "Has he done anything strange around you?" Well, as I was unsure as to whether or not it was really wrong, I might have even thought that it was my fault. But I knew that if I were ever going to tell my mom that this was my moment, The traffic light turned green. My mom hit the accelerator. We were late. It was hot outside. I was sweaty. My stomach was tied up in knots. And then all of a sudden, I told her. She slammed on the brakes and she pulled the car over to the side of the road. And that was the first time in my life I knew it was wrong. And she asked me if he had ever touched me. All these memories started flooding back into my mind, things I had pretty much buried and pushed out and tried to pretend away. I remember that a memory of our summer vacation just 2 years earlier, before I entered junior high, another scene on the beach, another scene on the water, just like the summer of '94, another family vacation I wanted to forget. A memory of him grabbing me and holding me in the water while he touched me under my bathing suit. I remember his words, "Do you want to go up to the hotel room with me?" I said, "No, I want to swim." He said, "We don't have to tell anyone, just come on." I said, "No, I want to go lay in the sand." He said, "We'll keep it our little secret." I pulled away from him that time. He punished me by not speaking to me for the rest of the day. I remember that same vacation, the same night, he needed to get some things out of our van and he needed my help, so I went with him, I had no idea what was in store for me. It was just beginning to get dark, and he told me to hop in the back seat and look for the cooler. He hopped in the back seat too. He said, "Sit up straight and don't move around." And then it happened again with the touching, and I was so scared, always so scared. But he would say that I was really special. He told me that if I loved him, I would let him. Well, I may not have known the answer when my mom first asked the questions in the car that day, but as I saw her reaction to everything I was sharing with her, the answer became so obvious. I didn't know it at the time, but now I do, that I was a victim of childhood sexual abuse. So many times we picture this happening, in other towns, other communities, other churches, other campuses, other people. But the fact is, it happens in every type of home, every other type of family. It cuts across every boundary. Gender, faith background, race, rich, poor. 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused by the time they turn 18. Well, did he ever touch me? My mom got super quiet in the car that day. I could tell she was holding back the tears, and we were already basically pulling in to pick up my stepsister, who was outside waiting for us. So she quickly said she didn't know what to do, but she was going to figure it out. That was Friday night. We left the following Monday. My mom and I just left our home. We prayed and believed together that however things turned out, it would be the best for everyone involved. My mom reported the abuse to Children's Services. And I will say, On the campuses that I speak to, so many times people will come up to me after I'm done talking and say, Nicole, me too. And they'll say, but my mom didn't believe me. I told her, I had the courage to tell her she didn't believe me like your mom did. Or she believed me, but she told me to be quiet. That's why I named my book Hush, because so many times we're told to keep the secret. And I want to tell you today that's not your secret to keep. It is no one's secret to keep. But my mom did the right thing, and she reported it, and my stepdad denied everything. We were to go to court in a month. It was the first day of my freshman year of high school. I was angry with God. Why? I finally broke my silence, and now my whole life is shattered. I don't want people to know this about me. And then, add on top of it, he was looking for us. So we were in hiding. Everywhere we tried to go, he was trying to find us. I was certain that he was going to take both my life and my mom's life if he found us. So we were hiding in friends and family's houses from him until the court date. Probably the most frightening day of my life occurred on the Thursday of that week. I remember it was really nice outside, and I was tired of being cooped up in attics and basements. And so I told my mom, we were staying at my grandmother's house, I told my mom I wanted to go for a quick walk around the block, and so they agreed, and the three of us were walking, and it was so nice to be outside, and I look up and I saw my stepdad's big blue van driving towards us on the street. So I yelled at my mom and grandma to run because it's him, which my mom always said God was protecting us, and I really believe this day because my grandma's running style is really impeccable. It was like, I thought she was a dead chicken. Like, I don't know how she kept up with us, but somehow God was protecting us, and I think he airlifted her or something. It was crazy stuff. So we're running, and we made it to the library, which was just around the corner, and fortunately he did not see us that day. And then the following Tuesday we went to stay with some friends, and the father of the family took me and his 3 kids to the mall. As we came back home, I saw a police car leaving their driveway. I knew something was wrong as soon as I walked in the door. My mom was quiet. She was by herself. She was sitting at their dining room table. She didn't even look up when I walked in the door. I said, "What's wrong, Mom? Why were the police here?" She said, "He shot himself." I said, "He's dead." She said, "Yeah." I remember just running around that house screaming, "I hate him, I hate him, I hate him." I was so furious. After a decade of being molested in my own home, time after time, and keeping his secret, I finally found the courage to break my silence and to tell my story, and to seek justice for what had been done to me, and here he took this way out. I couldn't see it at the time, but for me, it was like I wanted justice on earth. I wanted to see that my words and my story and my voice really mattered. And so it was really hard for me. Yeah, I would no longer face sexual abuse by my stepdad, but I felt alone. I felt dirty, damaged, ashamed. I felt like everything was my fault, and I was afraid of what people would think about me when I went back to school if they knew what I'd gone through. So it was then, exactly 1 week after I broke my silence, my stepfather had committed suicide, and I vowed I was never going to tell anyone again. 14 years old, I packed my secret right back up. I went back to school. Kids at school started calling me daddy's girl, and the flashbacks and the nightmares. To this day, I can't really remember when it all started, but I do remember when I was in 5th grade, there was a lady from the sheriff's department that came to our school and showed us a cartoon about child sexual abuse. I remember sitting on the library floor with my little 5th grade friends, and my boyfriend Chucky. Okay. And I remember thinking to myself, that really seems a lot like what's happening to me. But it's hard to gather, something as horrible as they made that sound could be happening in a family like mine. Everybody loved and trusted and adored my stepdad. It was hard for me to grasp how it could be happening in my home if it was that terrible. My stepdad always told me that he wanted us to be really close. He said he wanted it to be our little secret. He said it was his responsibility to teach me these things, that all good dads do this. He said no one ever talks about it. It was normal. He said he would kill my dog if I ever told anyone. My mom would get jealous. I would never see her again. I'd have to live with another family. He said no one would ever believe me because I was just a little girl, and he was a popular man in our town. I felt so tormented as a kid, wanting to tell, not knowing what would happen if I did, not knowing if it was wrong, not knowing who to believe, if I would be believed, what would happen if someone did believe, confused, afraid, silenced. Pain puts us into hiding. For me, it felt like there was no way out. But for me to stand on this stage today, I can tell you that there is a way out. After an entire childhood of manipulation, control, and sexual abuse, I can honestly stand here at 37 years old. I have a family. I have 3 stinky little boys. And, but I'm on a mission to help others find their voice, because I know breaking the silence, sharing your secret is the first step to healing. And I'm a work in progress. I believe healing from something like sexual trauma is a lifelong journey. But telling your story is the first step. Breaking the silence, even as an entire campus, to be able to let your stories come to the surface and know that you're in a safe place. The fact that your campus administrators would like to put this week on for you means they care about you more than the classroom, They want your healing journeys to start now, and they're creating safe places for your story to come out. Growing up, I remember always asking the question, where were you, God? Why do bad things happen to good people? I felt like God had turned his face to me when I was being abused, and I struggled as a kid. I had so many dreams for my life, but I felt broken. I not only needed rescue, but I needed help to heal. I needed to know that I wasn't alone and that my story mattered. I had so many angry fights with God, and I remember throwing these accusations and this anger towards him, but then running away and not really wanting to hear his response. And then one day someone told me, if God is this perfect father, the perfect father, he would want you to come to him with your anger and your questions and your accusations. He's big enough to answer them and to handle that. And so I remember that really changed my life, where I began to write angry journal entries to God and really be honest with him. A year after my stepdad's suicide, the next summer, I was 15 years old. I had gone a full year. I had not even told my best friend my story or the truth of why my stepfather committed suicide. And that summer, I was invited to this church camp. And I don't know what church camp's like for y'all these days, but when I went, the last day of camp, they had a time of open mic where anyone could get up and share something great that happened that week. Or one girl got up and talked about the boyfriend that she found at camp. I don't get it. But I didn't find a boyfriend at camp. But I did go up in front of that microphone, and in front of about 300 of my peers, including my own youth group, I told my story for the first time. And that was super awkward. But the reason I tell you is because back when I went to camp, it was eons ago, we had this thing called pen pals, where you actually wrote with pen and paper, okay? Now follow me just for a minute. It took a few days to get someone a message. You would write it on a piece of paper, and you would fold it, and you would put it inside this other contraption. You would lick it and stick it, and then there was a square-shaped sticker you would put on the corner, which said that you were supposed to, that some guy would come take it out of a box and take it to someone else's box, cities away. It would take 3 days to get someone a message. It was really weird. I think they called it hieroglyphics or something like that. But so for 3 days I went home, and I felt like such an idiot for having gotten up and telling the most shameful experience of my entire life in front of all of these kids. But on the third day, I started going to my mailbox, and I was getting letters and letters and letters and letters from other kids at this camp with lives and situations so similar to mine. But I was like, they don't get it. No one has been through this. But they were writing to me, thank you so much, Nicole, for your courage. I thought I was the only one. I also am being sexually abused in my home. And I started getting all these letters, and I realized, oh my goodness, there's other stories out there, that need to be uncovered. And it was that same week when I was writing my hate mail to God and really being angry with him about what I'd gone through, I was opening my Bible, and I came across this verse that completely changed my life. 2 Corinthians 1, 3, and 4. Praise be to the God and Father of the Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort. He comforts us in all of our troubles so that we can comfort others in any trouble with the same comfort we have received from God. Wow, I knew God was comforting me even when I was pissed off. I felt his comfort. And when I opened the Bible, I knew he was with me. And I felt that he was going to call me out of this darkness into his wonderful light, and he was going to bring purpose to my story. And so then I started writing back and forth with these other survivors of abuse I didn't even know were out there. comforting them with that same comfort I was receiving from God. Pain puts us into hiding. Purpose calls us out. I came to realize through all of that God was with me through it all. He was angry when I was angry. He cried when I cried. You know, everyone has a story. We all walk in here with some sort of baggage and shameful struggles, but in the midst of it all, God says that he can take even the most ugly, evil stuff in our lives and turn it into something good, something beautiful. He can give you purpose in the midst of your pain and can call you to greater things than you can even dream about. Although I know that, many of you are not survivors of some type of sexual abuse, harassment, rape, exploitation, I do know that I'm not alone in this room. For those of you who may walk in my shoes, I ask you to help me break the silence on sexual assault. Let this be the beginning of your healing journey. 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused by the time they even get to college. Every 2 minutes, someone in America is sexually assaulted. 1 in every 10 rape survivors are men. 1 in 5 college women are victims of rape or attempted rape their freshman year. 90% of sexual assaults involve alcohol or some other drug. I don't care what you wore, what you said, what you did, what you drank, how much you drank, what you smoked, where you went, why you went with them, if you ever even knew them before the day that you went with them. If you are sexually assaulted, it is not your fault. No one asks for rape. No one deserves abuse. And if we don't give people space to struggle, space to tell their secrets, if we don't confront sexual harassment or speak up for one another, help one another find their voice, things are never going to change. But healing can begin now on a campus like this where Christ is the center and he wants healing to happen and hope to cover all your relationships. Breaking the silence can be the first step. And some of you have maybe never had to face anything that I've mentioned today. But chances are you have a friend who has. Be that friend who will be the open ear to someone who needs it, who will give people space to struggle. Don't remain silent when others are mistreated. One of my favorite Bible stories about Jesus, after his first preaching tour in Galilee, he returns to his home base in Capernaum. And when news spreads that he's back, he's in this house, and everyone's going to this house where he's at. They want to be where Jesus is. And the house gets so full, you can't even open the door. And Mark 2:3-4 says that while Jesus was preaching God's word to the people gathered there, 4 men arrived carrying a paralyzed man on a mat. They couldn't bring their friend to Jesus through the door because of the crowd. And so what did they do? They crawled up on top of this house, and they busted a hole through the roof right above where Jesus was preaching, and they lowered their friend who'd been paralyzed for years, and they lowered him on his mat right to the feet of Jesus. Their love for this suffering friend is so inspiring to me and reminds me of why we are here. You may not have gone through what I've gone through, but you have a friend who has, and you can point them to the one who can heal them. The suffering man couldn't get to Jesus by himself. There's so many things that stand in our way that cause us to be afraid to come to the healer ourselves, but sometimes we just need a friend to walk us there. They had to be creative, assertive, and persistent, but they did it. They got him there. And you can be the answer, just like those friends were, to bring a hurting friend to Jesus for a second chance, because really we're all second chances. Every time I share my secret, I find myself in a room full of them. Your story is going to be different than mine. And so many times our inner pain turns to outer pain through, depression, self-injury, codependency, eating disorders, addictions. It's an ongoing cycle that doesn't stop until those who were once voiceless are empowered to break their silence. When those around them give them space to struggle, grace to grow, and hope to heal. No matter what your past looks like, no matter your situation, your secrets, your circumstances, no matter where you've been, what's been done to you, or what you've done to someone else, you're not alone. God wants to meet us all right where we are. He'll take the ugliest, messiest brokenness and turn it into beauty. He can bring purpose from your pain. I want to end by reading just a few words from my book, Hush. If no one sheds light on what is being done in the darkness, it will never stop. And survivors will never know the truth that will set them free from the lies that keep them in bondage. Every time we bring sexual abuse into the light, we help prevent more abuse while we help its victims heal. Victims need their own voice to break free from their silent pain, but they also need your voice. They need my voice, and together our voices become one voice, one that rings loud and clear, speaking words of love, truth, validation, acceptance, comfort. Our voice will penetrate the darkness and expose sexual violence for exactly what it is. Our voice will lead wounded hearts to a safe, open place of healing, and as we speak out, our voice will reduce the risk of abuse for the next child and the next child, and maybe your child. I'm not here this week asking for your sympathy. I'm asking for your strength. I think ending something like sexual abuse or trafficking or racism or injustice issues that you care about is going to take every single one of us raising our voice and together becoming one voice against it. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be in the back as you leave. I would love to meet you throughout the week. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.